So thanks everybody for coming. We have kind of a non-traditional seminar today with a group of 5 speakers, and I'm just going to go ahead and let Dr. Howden briefly introduce the group before they get started.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So today's talk is titled Diversifying Oceanography, the Coastal Ocean Environment Summer School in Ghana. And since there's 5 of us speaking, I'm going to give brief introductions to start out with and tell you how the outline of the talk. So first we have Brian Arbic, who's a professor at University of Michigan. He's a physical oceanographer. His research emphasis is on global high-resolution modeling of tides and eddies, and he collaborates frequently with Martin here in our department and also with others at NRL. And he is the founder of the summer school. And he's going to give a background and history of the summer school. And then that's going to be followed by Maddie Foster Martinez. She is an assistant professor of research at the University of New Orleans. She got her PhD from UC Berkeley in environmental engineering, and her research explores how we can work with nature to enhance coastal protection. She joined the summer school team in 2017. And what she's going to talk about is how we adapted to the realities of COVID and put on a virtual summer school this past August. Next will be Ebenezer, and he is originally from Ghana. He received his bachelor's in oceanography and fisheries from the University of Ghana and a PhD in physical and satellite oceanography from the University of South Carolina. And he's currently an associate research professor with Mississippi State University and NOAA at Stennis Space Center. And he's going to talk about the opportunities that satellite oceanography has generated for African oceanographers. And then at the end, I, along with Senam Tsei, are going to talk about the how I got involved in the summer school because of one of the participating universities was interested in hydrography, and give the background of what the university wants to do to generate a hydrography program and how it's progressed since I originally got involved. So Senam is currently a PhD in physical oceanography in our department, our division. He has a master's in hydrographic science from USM, which he got in 2020, last summer. He has a postgraduate certificate from the Center of Excellence of Observational Physical Oceanography from the Alfred Wegener Institute, and a master's in applied marine science from the University of Cape Town, South Africa, and a bachelor's in oceanography and fisheries from the University of Ghana at Legon. So I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thanks so much, Stephen. It's a delight to be talking here with so many people that are involved in the school, and I also collaborate with many of you there. Also, I think my dean is on. I see a login that looks like her, and thanks for coming, Anne, if that is indeed you. So I'm going to share my screen now, and I don't use, oops. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Oh, maybe I am doing it right. Are you seeing my PowerPoint now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now are you seeing that it's full screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we're going to talk about the Coastal Ocean Environment Summer School in Ghana, or COSING. The website is here. This is a picture of the summer school on the beach in 2018, back in the good old days when we were in person. Here's a map of Ghana. We hold the school in the capital city of Accra, and for those who don't know, Ghana is in West Africa. I'm going to talk fast because I have a lot of material I want to cover. So many people are involved in the school, including not just the 4 that are speaking after me, but many others. I'll talk more about that later. So what led us to this point and what can be learned from that journey about how to expand efforts like this. And forgive me for this, but I'm going to do a little bit of personal history. So my very existence is owed to Africa because my parents met there. My father taught secondary school math in Jos, Nigeria, a few years after his first trip to Africa, which was in Togo with Crossroads Africa. He really liked that, and so he went back to teach in Jos. This is a picture of him with his students back in 1964. My mother worked for a famous religious scholar who later became a professor and dean at Hartford Seminary, a very famous scholar of Islam. And Martin's on the call mentioned this guy was Dutch and he spoke 14 languages, thus proving, the Dutch are great at languages. But anyway, my parents met there, and this is them back in 1964. They were introduced by a mutual friend, Peggy, shown here, who was a Peace Corps volunteer. So again, I owe my existence to Africa. And stories about Nigeria were part of our family lore, but I grew up in Michigan, and specifically, I grew up in the cold part of Michigan, as I like to call it. Michigan has peninsulas, and I grew up on the Canadian border in Sault Ste. Marie. This is a view from the deck of my parents' house. So to get my bachelor's degree, I went to the tropical part of Michigan, which is in Ann Arbor, the University of Michigan, and I got a bachelor's there in math and physics in 1988. After my college graduation, I joined the Peace Corps, and for those of you who don't know, Kennedy actually announced the idea of the Peace Corps on the steps of the Michigan Student Union. There's a plaque commemorating that. And by wonderful coincidence, when I joined Michigan as a faculty member, it happened to be during the year there was a 50th anniversary celebration of the Peace Corps held at Michigan. And that is very important for this whole story, as you'll see in a bit. So my first Peace Corps posting in Liberia was cut short due to a brutal civil war. That's worth a whole talk in itself, but I won't talk about that here. But because of that civil war, I was reposted to Ghana, where I taught physics and math for 2 years at a secondary school. And there were a lot of challenges there. For instance, electricity and magnetism was quite difficult to teach there because we didn't have regular electricity. But we managed, and this is the students that I taught, taking them into the national exam. I had many students. These are the ones I knew the best. I took them into their national exam. They did well. It was in Domingo Secondary School in northern Ghana a very long time ago. This is me in the middle, so it's kind of a like father, like son picture. And these are the 3 students that the student I knew the best was Tsei Jeremiah. I knew all of them pretty well. And these 2 students will come up later, Joseph Ansong and Adamudu Akilu in this story. So why did I join the Peace Corps? Because it provided an infrastructure so that someone like me, a recent college graduate who wanted to go to Africa, was able to do it. Peace Corps was a huge adventure. I got amoebic dysentery and other great stories, but on the other hand, going on my own would have been even more of an adventure and a logistical challenge, and I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have been able to do it. The fact that Peace Corps existed, took me in, posted me there, that's very important. Again, that'll come up later in the story. But as I marched through my post-Peace Corps life, eventually landing a faculty position, I lost touch with my former Ghanaian students until 2008, 16 years later. Through the magic of the internet, they started writing me, and then I found out that Joseph Ansong, one of the people I showed in the picture earlier, was actually getting a PhD at the University of Alberta studying internal waves, which is one of the things I study. So it was a pretty remarkable coincidence that we were in the same field. I invited him to University of Michigan. This is us in front of my house in Ann Arbor. As part of that 50th anniversary celebration, he participated. I hired him into my group as a postdoc, and my African-American girlfriend, Jennifer, deserves a lot of credit for that. She suggested that I do that. Why don't you hire him? And I did. And so he was in my lab for 6 years, and the University of Michigan did a few stories about this surprising reunion. This is a picture of Joseph in my group, along with Paige Martin and Anna Savage, who have also participated in the school. Joseph is now back in Ghana as a lecturer, and which is equivalent of assistant professor. We still collaborate. So this school began as an outreach project for an NSF career grant. I talked to my program manager and said, how about this as an outreach project? He liked it. It reviewed well. And Joseph and I took a scouting trip to Ghana in 2014. And that was a nerve-wracking time to travel to West Africa. For those of you who have a good memory, you'll remember that that was when Ebola was happening. So Ghana never had any cases, but Liberia was one of the epicenters. That's just a few countries in one direction. And before we arrived in Ghana, it had started to spread in Nigeria, which is a few countries in the other direction. So I was really nervous, but in the end, there were no cases in Ghana, thankfully. So aside from my stress about that, the trip went well. And the other dramatic change I noticed was the ubiquity of cell phones, which have totally changed life in Africa. We also had a reunion with one of the other students that I taught. So there's Joseph, who's a postdoc in my lab. But one of the other strong students, Adam Mudu Akilu, we meet him every year. We go back starting that first year. He is now a member of parliament, representing the very district where we all met, many years ago. Okay, so now the school itself. So the first year we held it was a regional maritime university, which is a university that is focused on training people for the maritime industry, ship captains, ports, things like that. It was relatively small. We had 4 U.S. instructors. Ebenezer, who we'll talk later, was one of them, and this is Ebenezer giving a lecture. We only had lectures that first year, and we learned right away the importance of handing out certificates. Then in 2016, we went to the University of Ghana, which is a typical research-oriented university. For reasons I won't get into here, we alternate between that university and Regional Maritime University from one year to the next. But in between, my colleague Adam Simon said, gee, I'd like to go to Africa, and he had some ideas for how to get money from University of Michigan, especially for bringing students from Michigan to Ghana. And so that allowed us to expand the school to about 100 Africans and about 15 instructors from the US. And we also, with all that new energy, we expanded the curriculum to go beyond lectures. So we had field trips to the beach and laboratories. In 2017, the big new thing was the students went out on a tugboat and deployed an instrument, and they pretty much all got seasick, learning that that's part of the deal when you do oceanography. 2018, the new thing was that we did research projects where participants could work in small groups to do research projects outside of the lectures. 2019, we had even more of those research projects, and they were able to present them. Many of them said this is the first time they'd ever done something like that, presenting research. So from 2015 to 19, the African participants range from undergrads to faculty, some governmental and private sector workers, most from Ghana, of course, but many now come from Nigeria, which is the most populous country in West Africa, and there's people from other West African countries as well. Here's the subjects covered. I won't read them off, but it's many areas of oceanography as well as environmental fluids and a little bit of other environmental science and atmospheric science. So why should we do this? Well, the percent of people in the world that are African is about 15%, and that's growing rapidly. It's a very young and demographically growing continent. If you add in the African diaspora, it's about 18%. But if you go to any big scientific meeting in our field or others, you will just see, it's just obvious looking around, that the percent of scientists in the world that are African or diaspora is way less than 15 or 18%, much, much less than that. So it's a representation issue, but as well, oceanography in particular is a science that needs Africans. We're a global science, and if you want to observe and model the oceans around Africa, you have to have Africans involved. And also, I would mention that solutions to global problems require African participation. Since Africa has a big percentage of the world's population and it's growing, you're not going to solve global warming unless you have participation from Africans, including trained scientists. So we have a page, we have a web page, as I mentioned earlier, and there's a testimonial subpage on there. with all kinds of testimonials from Africans and Americans, and I'll just show a couple. So Nefertiti Smith is an undergrad, or was an undergrad in marine science at Hampton University, which is a historically black college and university. And I won't read her whole quote, but just the bottom part. People of color need to be represented in the scientific community. Global issues require people around the world to work together. The most important takeaway I learned from this program is that it is possible. She continues to join us at the school, and now she's a PhD student in the California system at Irvine. Here's one testimonial from a Nigerian working in the projects I mentioned. Those research projects was for him a turning point. It was culturally dynamic, and our tutor, Maddie Foster Martinez, is simply the best. She's going to be the next speaker. We modeled the trend in sea level rise and made a presentation, and he benefited immensely. So some other selected success stories. One of them is the enthusiasm of both the Global North resource persons and the African participants. We have many returnees from both sides of the pond. So I'm really happy that a lot of the Africans come every year, and a lot of the Americans and some Europeans also. And as an older person, I'm really happy that a lot of the young Americans really take charge to help set up the schedule, which is an awful lot of work. Maddie is one of those people who's done that, and again, she'll be the next speaker, and she'll tell you more about that. Jennifer Moskal wrote a master's thesis at Oregon State on the impacts of the school, and it's going to be published in a social science journal. I was on a call with her yesterday discussing the revisions for that. Another success story is that I'm supporting a University of Ghana student, Patrick Dwumfor, shown here, and then here he is at some international meetings. So he is working with Joseph Ansang, my former high school student and then postdoc that I mentioned earlier. And he works with Joseph, obviously, and also me and Dimitri Metamenlis, who's a NASA scientist. And one point I want to make here is that it only costs $8,000 a year to support a student in Africa. I do it with my University of Michigan overhead return. I send it there. And so, you know, we need to bring students from Africa to the US, as Stephen has done with Senam, but I think we also need to support students right in Ghana for many reasons, including the fact that it costs less. So it's just something I want to bring up as something the whole world should be doing more of this, I think. Richmond Kennedy Kwarku has participated in our school every year, and he has an organization called Plastic Punch that cleans up plastic on the beaches, and we brought him to the Ocean Sciences meeting, and he talked about his work. He's a very charismatic speaker, and the talk was very well received. Plastic is a really big problem in the oceans all over the world, including Ghana. There's another picture. You can just see how much plastic there is on the beaches. And one last success story. This is my own grad student, Paige Martin, who's now a postdoc at Columbia. And I never thought of this when I started the summer school, but this was her idea. She said, let's teach people how to program in Python. The reason is because MATLAB, which a lot of us use, costs money. There's a license fee. And so a lot of people, even in the US, but especially in Africa, don't want to pay that fee or can't pay that fee. Python is a very powerful language that's free. It's open source. And so she has these tutorials on this topic. So just a little feedback from that. So Chris said he learned that Python is fun. It removes some fear. And so that's what he got out of it. He, by the way, is now a graduate student in Canada, University of Victoria. Jonathan used Python to prepare his undergrad thesis. And I could be wrong, but I think Jonathan actually worked with Stephen on that, who we'll talk later. And Mabel, who's a lecturer at University of Cape Coast, said that this helped her learn how to write her own codes. And our favorite story is Mumi Noladipo, who's a Nigerian student. He studies the atmosphere, not the ocean, but hey, close enough. And so there's a lot of quotes there. I won't read them all. He said that he couldn't afford to purchase MATLAB, as I mentioned earlier. And what he did was he he takes data using this instrumentation on the atmosphere, but the cost of the power to run that was too high, and he was not able to run it. And so using Python, he used this thing called Raspberry Pi. Don't ask me about the details, that allowed him to run this instrumentation at a much lower cost. So actually taking the data for his PhD thesis was made possible through his collaboration with Paige, who's shown here. So a little bit to finish up, a little bit on funding, and I have a few more slides after that, but you always have to talk about funding. So NSF, my own university, has been generous. It funded a couple years of the project. The International Center for Theoretical Physics in Italy helped fund one of the years, and there's various sources in Ghana. I have a current NSF grant that will fund one more in-person school. I have a proposal in with the Navy. They need allies for operations around the world, so they might fund a couple years. There's also an extremely ambitious NSF proposal led by Howard University, which is another historically black college university. They're going to set up weather stations in West Africa to improve weather and climate prediction in West Africa and the US. And that's because hurricanes that hit the US actually start in the waters off of Africa. And so that's the science behind it. And my role is basically that our school will be used as platforms for meetings. Also, the University of Michigan Africa Studies Center and Provost's office is trying to get donors for some of the Africa programs. I'll lead a panel during Michigan's Africa Week in 2021. So I'm also working with the UN Decade of the Ocean. We're working with people around the world, including these people here, plus others, to try to get more funding for capacity development, and we're tying it to other international initiatives, including these listed here. So many people have worked to make this school possible. Here's the Ghanaian instructors at the two places. Red means that they've participated more than once. Here's the people from the global north from 2015 to 19. We have faculty, grad students, undergraduates, including many Michigan students, but also other places. Again, red means more than once, so I'll just highlight Maddie, who's talking next. She came first as a grad student at Berkeley, and she's had 2 postdocs. She comes every year. She's changed her job twice. She's still a regular. So all these people came because the school existed. Some of them, Stephen, for instance, had never been to Africa before participating in the school. They came because of their passion and interest, and because the school infrastructure was already in place, making participation relatively simple. So it's analogous to the Peace Corps, and it made it easy, relatively easy. Our online 2020 school drew a large contingent of new folks, as shown here, because again, the infrastructure was in place. Why don't you join us? It's especially easy when it's online. And so the point is, if there was more funding for stuff like this, there would be more people. I'm totally convinced of that. Every time I talk about this, more people ask to join. It's very clear there could be an expansion. We could go to many countries if we had the funding. So you need the right concept, and this is my pitch for anyone who's interested in this kind of thing. I would propose something like an ocean core, that if you had a consortium of universities that said we want to do this, and you found the right donor, you could multiply what we're doing by many times. Why not have 10 oceanography schools? And even bigger than that, why not have 10 schools each in 10 other important STEM fields like materials science and others, and maybe you could call that a STEM core. Again, we know that people are super interested in this kind of thing, especially right now. So again, I think a consortium would stand a better chance to be funded in, and it's appropriate because the job is big. Africa has 1 billion people, so this is a big, big task. Also, I think networks that serve groups that are underrepresented in the US would be more likely to attract substantial US funding. So as I mentioned, we're already collaborating with 2 HBCUs, so why not have places like University of Michigan and HBCUs and places in Africa, and all working together to connect students to work on big problems. And so if you had such an ocean core specifically for our field, or even bigger, a STEM core, I'm convinced it would lower the activation people for busy people to participate. It would internationalize the US research community, diversify the global STEM community, and develop real collaborations between US and global South research communities. And I just want to highlight one of those will be later in this talk. Stephan and Senam are already doing this. So I've said enough, and I'll turn it over to Maddie.
Thank you, Brian. All right, can everyone see my slides?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, thank you. That's the school. So I'm going to be talking, like Stephen said, about what we did this year. So it became very apparent that we wouldn't be able to travel to Ghana, unfortunately. And so how do you recreate this absolutely awesome experience online? The school has gone through all of these changes and growth and development, and now we had this new challenge. So one of the key things that we were thinking about when thinking about how to set this up is that we knew that interaction is very key. All those the collaborations that Brian was just talking about, a lot of this comes from these small group conversations, these lunchtime conversations when you happen to catch one of the instructors and ask a question, and then you really that's when a lot of the learning is happening. So that interaction we knew is really important. But we also needed to, we do have lectures which are a little bit easier to transition online. But again, we have a lot of discussion and question and answer. So we wanted something to be able to maintain that part. But we also knew that there's pretty unreliable infrastructure. So not just internet, but also electricity. This is a picture from last year's school, and we're all kind of gathered in one corner because that's where the Wi-Fi was the best, and that's where there were working power outlets. So we knew that this would be a challenge for a lot of our participants. So with these things in mind, we decided to go with more of a catch-all approach. So we used the COESing website and YouTube. These are both publicly available. All of the content there is available year-round. People are able to download it, but there's no interaction. There's none of that interactive component. So in order to get that, we decided to use Slack. So for people who are not familiar with Slack, it's an online platform that has a lot of message boards and channels, and it allows you to directly message as well as have group discussions. So this is where we put links to Zoom lectures and all of our live content. So this is what we had available to people who were able to access it to have this interactive component. So what content did we put on these platforms? We had 4 main types of content. The first was live lectures and discussions. We had about 15 hours of this. These were all hosted on Zoom. And as Brian mentioned, we were able to bring in a lot more speakers because we didn't have you didn't have to travel to Ghana. So we were able to bring in people that otherwise wouldn't have been able to join us. We've recorded these and we posted them to YouTube, and they were a really big hit with the participants. The second type of content were recorded videos. These tended to be more of your traditional lectures. So we had 42 videos, 17 hours of content. Again, we were able to get more speakers, and we tried to make these as widely visible as possible. So we put links on YouTube as well as the website and Slack. We also had office hours. So this is when one of the instructors would sign on to Zoom and any of the participants were able to join. We had 40 hours of office hours, and these varied pretty widely. So sometimes it was, this one screenshot in the bottom here was doing a screen share with someone, looking very particularly at their research and what their issues and questions were. Other times the discussion was, more general about how is Ghana dealing with COVID? How is everyone doing? Probably pretty similar to what everyone here has experienced when they get into these small groups and we get to talk about, just what's going on right now. And so the office hours, I think in the future, we're going to try to do a better job of making it clear as to what they are meant for. We had some confusion on people expecting there to be lectures during this time, but it was just these were just small group discussion, and again trying to recreate some of that interactive component. And fourth, we had lab exercises. So as Brian mentioned, there's been a really big push for using open source software. So we had 6 Python-based data analysis labs. We also had one using Ocean Data View, which a lot of chemical oceanographers use and is also free. And then one hands-on fluid dynamics kind of bulk of labs. Actually, there are multiple things within that one lab. And these were all standalone, so people could do them on their own, and they all had their own set of instructions. So we're hoping that some of those got downloaded and people will work on them kind of throughout the year. We conducted a post-school survey, and one of the questions that we asked was just generally about this content. What did you find most useful? What did you like the most? And we had lots of different options, but the top 3 responses all had to do with the live lectures and discussions. So both the interactive panel discussions, the live content lectures, as well as recordings of the live content. So that definitely seems to be something that people enjoy, get a little bit more out of, when they're able to ask questions, or even if it's just listening to what other people asked during that live session. And then the fourth, again, was the Python labs. So those continue to be very popular, and it's clear why. They're very useful, and again, open source software is great for these participants. We asked about challenges to participation, and as we predicted, the overwhelming response was unreliable internet and electricity. And so a lot of people said that they would love to have joined the live content, but they just weren't able to, didn't have the battery power on their laptop, or didn't have the bandwidth. We're learning again how to make some of our live content require less bandwidth, different modes in Zoom and some of the online platforms. You can see here that most people, kept their cameras off, and that, is one way to kind of help mitigate that. Another challenge, again, something common that I think we're all dealing with. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I forgot that I had a quote here. So this is anything in the yellow boxes are quotes from students. And so this person said, "I would have loved our university to be open so I could have more access to power internet connectivity." And again, just pointing out that a lot of the participants rely on their workplaces and universities for good, reliable infrastructure. And so during this time of, those places were shut down, and so they had less reliable infrastructure at home. Again, a thing that a lot of us are experiencing are distractions, both family and home and work. I noticed these 2 little kiddos peering over this gentleman's shoulder made me crack up during one of the sessions. And again, so something that a lot of us are dealing with, that there's more disturbances due to family members. And someone said, "I wasn't able to give full attention to the summer school this year, partly due to the virtual nature, which allows for other engagements." So normally when we're all in person, we travel to the same locations. So you're not working during that week. And the same goes for all of the instructors, that you're really focused on the school. You're there in person and you're giving it, your full day, your full attention. Now, the flip side to this, when we asked about the advantages to being virtual, some people said, they did not have to leave work. So perhaps, having to give up a full week before did prevent some people from joining us. So this, one person said, "I'm able to blend work with the school." And so that allowed them to be able to multitask and participate. Other advantages were ability to download materials. So again, we give a lot of a lot of lectures, but in the past we weren't recording those lectures when we gave them in person. But people seem to really like that ability to download the recorded lectures. And again, downloading is important because of the lack of infrastructure. So if you do have a really good signal, then you can quickly download as much as possible and then watch it later on when you may not have as good of a signal. And people, said that they were rewatching these and that they wanted to revisit them again and again and again. And last, more instructors were able to participate. And this was just really wonderful to have so many people from across the globe, able to lend their expertise. And it was great to see those discussions. And so it provided an avenue for more participants, instructors, and panelists. So overall, a lot of this pointed to the need to kind of check in with students. So I'm really excited about this. We decided to have a mini coessing in January. And so this will hopefully give people more time to review all of the material. As I said, we had hours upon hours of content. And so it was just kind of too much to be able to get to it all in that 1 week. And so, people can focus on their particular subject areas, or if they're looking to learn about everything, perhaps they're going through all of the videos. We really are trying this catch-all approach so that there's something for everyone. And so we're hoping that, given the time between August when we had the virtual school and January, people will have reviewed some of those materials, tried some of the laboratory activities, and then we can have another concentrated week where the instructors are more responsive to the online platform on Slack, or more responsive to email, and can help students through some of those materials, and people can get their questions answered, and we can get more collaborations going. I think that this hybrid model will continue in the future. Like I said, we hadn't been recording the in-person content, but seeing that there's so much demand for it, I think that that's something that we will consider doing in the future, so that those videos can then be posted on the website or on YouTube. And again, this providing lots of options, because there's just a diverse range of what people's access to the internet and electricity are, what their interests are. We have undergrads up to faculty members, so just trying to provide as much as possible so that everyone benefits from the school is really important. And last one, a positive thing is that this really did improve our ability to communicate year-round. So now we have some of these channels more established, people are used to using them. So hopefully it'll bring more people to our website, more people to Slack, more people to our YouTube channel, and they'll continue to kind of interact with the school year-round and not just during that 1 week. So lots of good positive things have come out of this, but at the same time, I think we're all very eager to be able to do this in person again, and we're looking forward to the day when that's possible. But that's the end of my talk, so I'll go ahead and pass it along. Thank you.
Okay, Evan.
Hi, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So as part of this course, we ran a session on satellite oceanography, and this session of the talk will look at how we apply this to our study as part of coasting. So West Africa has a very large coastline, about 5,600 kilometers, and it hosts about 31% of the population of Africa. That's over 400 million. And this number is expected to increase because the coastal zone provides a lot of resources. Chiefly, we get a lot of protein from there because that's one of the main sources of protein, that's fisheries. And it's also a source of income for many of the natives. And here is a summary of some of the economic activities from the coastline. So in the top right, we see a beach in Sierra Leone, which is quite a very popular destination, especially for a lot of people from Europe. And then oil drilling is also very active in West Africa, in Nigeria, in Ghana, and other countries like Cote d'Ivoire and Liberia prospecting for oil offshore. In the bottom left, you see a figure of fishing activity in the western part of Ghana. So the people land the fishermen land the fishes, and then the women go to buy them, sell them fresh, or they smoke them. And probably more important, or one of the important things also is on the bottom right, which is maritime security. We knew that in the past, this used to be more active in the Arabian Sea region, but that activity has shifted to West Africa. So West Africa is now the hotspot for pirate activity, which is of a lot of concern for economic activity and also for people who want to go there to do research. So how do we move forward and how do we solve some of these issues in the coastal zone? Because there are a lot of issues. For example, there's coastal erosion, which is ongoing in a lot of places in West Africa. The sands are shifting, and there's also pollution, algal blooms, and all that. It is very expensive to go out to sea to go and conduct research, and a lot of these countries cannot afford research boats. I think it's only Nigeria that I'm aware of that have a research boat in West Africa. Ghana doesn't have one. So it's possible to rely on satellite oceanography or satellite data because the data is extensive, it's repetitive, so you can have long time series, and it's also free. Most of the satellite data are very free and easily accessible. And therefore, our goal in this aspect of the summer school was to increase the capacity and the ability of the indigenes to identify problems that they can do research on, go fetch satellite data, be able to analyze, and then use that to do their studies. We also wanted to train them in using softwares to process the data. And as Brian mentioned, MATLAB is very expensive. So we, in recent times, we'll be using Python, which is cheap and have a very good learning curve. So those were the goals in this aspect of the program. And as I mentioned, there are a lot of environmental issues in West Africa that we can use satellite data to address. In the top left is algal blooms, and when it happens, it is carried to other parts of the region. So here in the top left, that's algal bloom that started off from Cote d'Ivoire, which is the country just west of Ghana, and it was carried by the ocean currents to Ghana and to Togo. And on the top right is thermal pollution. So in the western part of Ghana, for example, you have thermal plants that are close to the coast. So they discharge their effluents into the river, and you can see the warming in the coastal region. And then there's also devastation in the rivers. The rivers provide a source of water to many of the people down there. And in the pictures on the bottom panels, we see polluted rivers, some from mining activities. This is surface mining, and a lot of them are illegal. So they pollute the water bodies, and then they become difficult for the fisheries and other aquatic organisms. So with satellite data, we'll be able to study these, monitor these activities, and be able to come up with effective ways to control them. So satellites are very expensive to launch, and African countries cannot launch satellites by their own. Nigeria has one that is flying, but it's more for communication. But recently in 2017, a university in Ghana, All Nations University, launched a CubeSat, which collect data. That was very, very encouraging. CubeSat are very tiny satellites. They don't use a lot of energy, and they are not expensive. So this probably may be the way to go. As part of our school, we have classes in the morning. So we teach the theory and introduction to satellite oceanography or remote sensing. So we teach the science and the physics behind it. And in the afternoons and Sundays, we go out to sea. So on the bottom right, we go to the port in a little boat with this, and we deploy equipment to this. Then we campus either Maritime University or University of Ghana. And later on, this data is transmitted by satellite. We download it and we use it to teach the students in lab exercises. So these usually we do in the afternoons. And to complement this, we also show the students where and the participants where they can get free satellite data. So we go to the NASA, NOAA portals, the European Space Agency, and also ArgoFloat, because we show them that when you get the satellite data, you need to validate the data and see that what the satellites are measuring are good. And you need to clean it up to remove noises like from scattering, cloud cover, and stuff like that. So you have to rely on ArgoFloat. So they use that extensively also. Then aside Python, we have other specialized softwares that are used to process data. So examples are NASA has the CEDAR satellite, software that you can use to process ocean color data. European Space Agency also have the BEAMS software, which you can use to process SAR and ocean color, as well as BEACO. And all these are free to get. And we do hands-on training a lot, and that is one of the success stories of the summer school. So usually the participants tell us that in their local universities, they do a lot of theory and reading, but they do very little hands-on experience. And it's because they don't have the tools or equipment to do that. So they are very excited when we do this aspect of the lab or the school. And this session, we're taking a local problem and showing them how to address it. So we teach like upwelling, which is shown by having very low water or cool waters coming to the surface ocean, or you have high productivity. So here we downloaded satellite data from NASA. We show them how to use MATLAB to process it and to compute anomalies and do time series plots. And then they're able to show trends, and we discuss the results with them and try to apply to their local studies. So beyond this, we have students who come to us with their own thesis or dissertations. We help them where to get data, the kind of computations and analysis that they can do, and help them to analyze their results. And this has helped them to complete their dissertations. Some have been able to use the techniques, the skills they learned from Python to get jobs, and others have been able to get graduate school outside of Ghana and West Africa. Thanks. I'll hand over to the next speakers.
Thank you, Evan. Let me share my screen. Okay. So do you see it's going into, there you go. Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
Great. So I guess it was 2016. Martin called me about a kayak trip in the North Shore of Lake Pontchartrain. Brian was down visiting, and Martin wanted to know if he could borrow one of my kayaks and if I wanted to go. And so I was on this trip, and I met Brian, and he mentioned that he was doing the summer school, and that one of the universities was interested in hydrography, adding a hydrography component to it. And he was wondering if anybody at USM would be interested in that. And I said, yeah, I'm very interested. And so that's how I got involved. In 2017 was the first summer school I participated in, and as Brian had shown earlier, that one was held at the Regional Maritime University, which was the university that was interested in developing a hydrography program. And the Ghanaian organizer at that meeting was actually Senam Tsei. So there he is in this picture. And so he was handling it on the Ghanaian side while Brian was organizing from Michigan. And so that's when I first met Senam. And now Senam is going to give kind of a background on how Regional Maritime University sees the need for hydrography to develop a hydrography program for West Africa. And so go ahead, Senam.
Thank you, Steve. So Regional Maritime University is a regional university that managed by 5 West Africa, English-speaking West African countries that include the Gambia, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Cameroon, which is a francophone one, and Ghana. There was a lack of that for francophone-speaking countries in La Côte d'Ivoire, but they failed to pass the IMO standards. So the only maritime university in West Africa that provides training for the port, for administration of the ports, is only in Ghana. So the country realized that there was such a need of hydrography because they noticed that data produced from the chart are really sparse. And coming to have a discussion with Brian and Canon, and they also noticed that in the vertical alone, there's this uncertainty of 300 meters in some places in depth. So this provides opportunity for Ghana to start a program in hydrography. Steve.
Okay. Yeah, so in all of Africa, there's only one hydrographic program that is recognized by the International Hydrographic Organization. That is in Egypt. And they have a Cat B program there. So if RMU develops a Cat B program, that would be only the second in all of Africa. And as a regional university, they're drawing students from many countries in West Africa and even beyond. So it would be a real asset. Now, I'm not going to go through all the information on here. I just want to in the next two slides just kind of give you a sense of it's a pretty big lift to develop a hydrographic program. There's a range of expertise from geodesy to acoustics to oceanography to precise positioning, all the practical hydrographic skills. And so you have to find people who can teach all those classes. And there's also a large requirement for expensive equipment. So the International Federation of Surveyors, the International Hydrographic Organization, the International Cartographic Association have a board that certifies programs to be either at the Category A or Category B level for hydrography. And at USM, we have a master's Category A and a bachelor's Category B. And they have very detailed requirements. And so they have this one document here that talks about all the topic elements that have to be covered in a curriculum, what content must be covered for each topic, and what the learning outcomes are. And have to put together requirements, put out all put in by hours what type of delivery and how many hours of each, and what type of learning assessments would be used. So all that has to be done, and you have to have all find the faculty and the resources for the equipment. So how to meet these extensive resource requirements? So as was mentioned earlier, RMU has been focused on maritime studies, and so there's expertise that they would need to bring in, and they have a partnership with University of Ghana, and so some of the neighboring universities could be brought in to help with course content delivery. The Ghanaian Ports and Harbors Authority, the Port of Tema, which I'll show a picture later, they have all the hydrographic survey equipment needed, and there's a tight relationship between RMU and the port. And so, and then USM, we've developed kind of an unofficial consultation with RMU to help as we can. So university partnerships can assist with course content delivery, and then the government partnerships can assist with equipment requirements and training. So here is, in this map here, the Regional Maritime University is shown here. Here is the Port of Tema. And so this is the original port. This is where there's a port expansion. And so here's the Port and Harbors Commission building at the port. And this is a survey launch. They've got survey launches, multi-beam systems, land survey equipment, tie gauges. Here's a picture on the right of a group of us in 2019 going out for a little survey, and there's Maddie and myself and 3 of the students. So now Senam's going to talk about some of the developments in moving this program forward.
Thank you, Steve. So far, in spring 2019, Steve and Brian visited Ghana and had a consultation with the government authorities, regional maritime university personnel, the port and harbor, and the nation, as I would say, has a national hydrographic committee. So based on that, they decided to have a meeting with Steve and Brian. So after the consultation, the discussion, they impressed upon the National Hydrographic Committee to set up to be part of IHO. So a legislation was passed. So in Ghana, we have the executive, the parliament, and the judiciary. So everything that has to be done by law must go through all these steps. Thank God that at this time bureaucracy has not stalled anything. So so Ghana was able to register. Is now the newest member of IHO. So the good news is that IHO has come rooting back to the authorities, the national authorities, to impress upon them to establish a hydro office in within the Ghana Maritime Authority, because they were so much happy to see the last time when they realized that based on the International Maritime Organization status, Ghana has improved so much on chart improvement and delivery. So they impressed it upon the nation to set up. So based on that, the National Hydrographic Committee has decided to go ahead to develop courses and have and impressed upon regional maritime university to strengthen its relationship with other government authorities that or agencies that could help in establishing or starting this program. That would be very good, because now that South Africa has lost its Cat B status, so Ghana provides the opportunity, aside that being politically stable, it provides great opportunity for people from all walks of life from Africa to attend such a program. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, so just to clarify, that was Brian Connon who went with me to Ghana. He was chosen by the IHO capacity building program to do this capacity building work program. And so as you look at the map on the right, you can see that there are not a lot of countries in Africa that are members states of the IHO. And so that was a big development for Ghana to become a member of the IHO, and it gives the opportunity for them to get more capacity building grants and opportunities through the IHO. So that concludes it. I just want to acknowledge there are a bunch of people at USM who have helped fund my travel to participate in the summer school. And I want to thank Brian Arbic for starting and leading the summer school, and the whole team who makes it happen. And I guess we'll open it up to questions now.
Okay, great. Yeah, I want to congratulate all of you for having such a successful program with so much potential. We are right about on the hour, so no worries if people need to leave, but if you can stay, let's have some questions and I'll help field them, so you can raise your hand or type something in the chat. Does Carrie Miller want to ask a question?
Yes. Hey, can everyone hear me?
Oh, yep.
Great. First, I want to just say thank you to all the panelists. This was a really interesting seminar and a program that I had no knowledge of prior, so it was really exciting to learn about that. Also, hi, Maddie. I haven't seen you in a while. It's good seeing you again. And so basically, my question is really, I guess, for Brian. I was also a Peace Corps volunteer in West Africa. I was in Niger from 2008 to 2010. So as you know, it's a landlocked country. So oceanography was not really a big component there. However, really my question, when you were talking towards the end of your presentation about substantial expansion in the future, you know, it seems like you're definitely focused right now just on universities and some governmental counterparts. But I was just wondering if you had any plans to expand to a more secondary school, primary school type of thing to kind of get students in oceanography pipelines earlier, maybe out in the bush and place it, you know, outside of Accra. Has that been a discussion? I'm sure funding and logistics is very difficult, but I was just kind of wondering if that was something that you guys had discussed or was feasible in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. So I'll just briefly mention that, you know, as you know, Peace Corps volunteers often travel around, and I did spend a month in Niger. That was a great, lovely country. Yeah, I mean, I'm open to all kinds of ideas. You know, I think I thought when you were talking that you were going to say, how about more of a private sector focus? That's another thing we could do too. You know, I just think that I think that it's just such an open field, you know, like I say, you go to science meetings and Africans just are not represented. Of course, it's not just Africa, South Americans. There's a lot of South American countries that are not well represented either. And so I kind of envision it at a research level, you know, to get more active research collaborations like the ones Senam and Stephen talked about. But, you know, I'd be open to going to lower levels too, because like you say, you have to start down there. So we focus so far on the university level, but sure, I mean, you're absolutely right. You have to have that pipeline. I guess, you know, the Peace Corps kind of covers that, right? I mean, they tend to send volunteers to elementary and secondary schools, so I kind of thought maybe this would be at a higher level, but I'm totally open to other things. I think, you know, people see that you have a need for more scientists in a lot of places around the world, and that's the main goal. And so you just got to find the right billionaire to fund it, right? and like, you know, like I say, I give these talks, and not only do a lot of Americans say I want to join, but also when people from, you might say, the global South, they say, hey, we want an oceanography school in Jamaica or Nigeria or whatever. So there's interest on both sides. It's all about funding.
I'll just add something to that, you know, I think some of the instructors are thinking about that. And so I know, like, for the fluid dynamics lab, they included some instructions on like how this could be done with like high school or middle school students. So hopefully some of the participants will take that and you know, do it on their own. So there's the thought about that, and just kind of the hope that it'll spread in that way.
Okay, great. Thank you both. And just one last moment, I think it would be interesting in the future to kind of tap into that Peace Corps workforce on the ground. And if you were able to develop that kind of curriculum, you know, you could essentially give that to them, and the education volunteers could kind of work that into their everyday activities, which I think would be really cool.
That's true. We have one of the other people involved in the school, Emily Schroyer, is also an ex-Peace Corps volunteer. And so we have visited the Peace Corps office in Ghana a few times, and, you know, just not having enough time to further develop it. But we are thinking about things like that for sure. Come join us. Join us in this endeavor. It'd be great. Thanks.
Yes, I will definitely be keeping a very close eye on this in the future. And again, thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, Jerry Wiggert, do you have a question?
Yeah, so it's really, you know, Brian, your talk walking through sort of the partnerships that you've developed on the west side of Africa. So I'll just give you sort of my little mini history. I've been pretty involved in Indian Ocean and trying to promote, you know, sort of collaborative across, you know, global research interactions. And, you know, one thing we've talked about a little bit is trying to do capacity building, because mostly what we're doing is trying to build the research side of things. But one thing we have talked a little bit about is, you know, trying to set something up maybe on the eastern side of Africa, which then would be on the Indian Ocean side. And I just wonder if you have any sense of, you know, what the level of interest and participation might be if you, since you're working in Africa, you might have a good understanding. And we do have partners within our groups, which is very international, from South Africa. So it's not like we haven't got an understanding, but I'm just interested if you've got any perspectives on that.
Yeah, so as you probably know, we're entering the UN Decade of the Ocean. I mentioned it so fast it might have gone by, but so we're writing a document for the decade, which basically says capacity development should be a massive priority around the world, and we do have one of the co-leads of that is someone from Mauritius, so that's that side of Africa. You know, and we've had meetings with people from around the world, including other East Africans too, and so you know, our pitch will basically just be that the whole oceanography community should focus on this, and we do have some East Africans interested. In fact, if you're interested, I'm writing down names here. We'd love to get more co-signatories. You know, if you just like the general idea. You know, we want to collect names of people that think this is a good idea, and you could sign on, and if we're successful to get a pot of money that people could apply for, you could apply for it and do some things yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the groups I'm involved with are like Clivar supported, like the Indian Ocean Reference Regional Panel, and we have this called Cyber, which is like the biogeochemical sister of that. And then there's the Indus group, you know, the Indian Ocean Observing System. And so it's like pretty large, high-level panels. But if I link in with what you're doing, I think I can communicate with them, and I think there could be something we could really start to get balls rolling on this.
Yeah, the Mauritius person that's involved is an IOC person. You might know her. Her name is Gina Bond, if you know her.
Yeah, well, so we've been co-funded for a while from the IOC Perth office, and Nick Diadamo there is someone we work with quite a bit, but we've had other connections to IOC personnel along the way too, so.
Yeah. No, the IOC knows about what we're doing, and I think they're supportive of it, and
yeah.
So yeah, let's talk. I like to say I'm writing down names.
Good. Sounds great. Thanks.
Okay, maybe I'll ask one last question. I was wondering, what is the recruitment like of students in Ghana? Do you have, more people signing up than you can take? Do you have an application process? What is that process like?
It's a little bit loose. Ebenezer has been involved in Senam too. I see Senam's laughing. We have an email list and we send it out, and some of the people on that email list are professors who could then, multiply it by sending a lot of their students. We do have an application process, and we do turn down some people. It's, because it's only a 1-week school and there's no degree, there's just a certificate. It's nowhere near as rigorous as, applying for grad school. But the thing we mostly look at is why people are interested in going. If they actually have a convincing, this is what they're going to get out of it, that's the main thing we look for. And there's also balances like whichever school's hosting it that year, we go back and forth. We need to have some of their undergrads involved. And then another thing we often discuss is how many faculty should we bring in versus younger people. Senam, why don't you add something? I'm doing most of the time.
Yeah, thank you. My involvement with the organization and the recruitment was taught me a lot, because simply if somebody is interested, at least I want to see in the application, I want to learn so and so marine science because it's helpful to my work. And the amazing thing I came across is they great mathematics and physical background a lot of these students have, and that really amazed me. And I say, and those are the students that I really want to interact with, and also those in the port administration that just want to be in the office, but they need to understand the ecosystem in which they work. So I try to lure along those people as well to give me a bit of oceanography to understand where they work. And yeah, it has been great. And it's the more you show interest, the more I know it became a tag of war, who to select, and who not to select. But at the point I have to just, okay, this person shows interest, this person doing this and that, and that's really helped me. Yeah.
Yeah, and to give some numbers, last year when we had it in person, there were about 400 applicants, and we could only accept about 150.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there is some selectivity.
Yeah. And people
we did it online. There wasn't really, we just said, if you want to come, come.
Yeah, because 2018 we had students applying from Brazil, from Egypt, from India, and some requested funding, but at that point we don't have funding. But the online now has provided opportunity to Indian students to participate, because I saw a professor and his student in the class, and students from Brazil are also participating, and that is the good news about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an advantage moving forward if you can do a hybrid hybrid system, then a lot more participation. Okay, I think in the interest of time, we'll close the formal seminar. So thanks again to all the speakers. But if anybody wants to stick around, we can leave the meeting open and yeah, go ahead, Stephen.
And also, if anybody wants to get in touch with any of the speakers, I can give you the contact information.
Great.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for
Thanks,
participating.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, happy weekend, but
Yeah, have a great weekend. Thank you.
stay